Okay, we're going to talk about something that everybody can relate to. There's nobody that does not do this, and there's nobody that does not eat in this room. Everybody puts food in their mouth at one time or another, right? All right, I'm going to ask some questions. Now, I didn't write them in the right order, so I think we'll start here with, let's look at 1 Corinthians 3, and let's look at verse 2. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and let's look at verse 2. What's your Bible, son?
1 Corinthians
Chapter 3, verse 2. First Corinthians 3, 2. And we're going to look at 3 verses. It's an important lesson in these 3 texts. 1 Corinthians 3, and we're going to look at 2. And someone with a loud, beautiful voice read the first verse for us.
Just to
do you want to wait till I get
Sure. No.
I have fed you with milk and not with meat, for hitherto ye were not able to bear it, neither yet now are able.
What is Paul talking about?
God spoke the word of God.
It's talking about the word, right? So we understand that in the scriptures there's 2 categories of the word. What 2 are they?
Milk and meat.
Milk and what?
Meat.
Meat. One is for one group of people, and the other is for the other group of people. Correct? What 2 groups are those? According to these verses here.
it's strong?
3.
Strong.
The strong and the weak, more, let's get
Carnal.
more within the
The
text.
baby and the adult. The grown. The subject are made right.
Mature and the immature.
The carnal.
I heard carnal.
Carnal and the
The
spiritual.
carnal and the spiritual, which none of those answers that you and T gave were, or CJ gave were actually wrong. But carnal and spiritual is what I'm looking for. If you had to take a guess, who do you think would be on milk? The carnal person or the spiritual person?
Carnal,
The carnal.
Spiritual.
Absolutely.
Unless they're not.
Why, Daniel?
because they're not mature yet, so they can't eat
They can't eat what?
meat.
Meat. And then the spiritual person, what do you think they would eat?
Meat.
Meat. Now we're not talking about, we're dealing with the spiritual, right?
Right.
The milk is being used to show that it's a certain type of teachings, real simple teachings. Like you ever see the children's story that's given sometime? They're real quick, important lessons, aren't they? Can everybody understand very quickly and real clearly? Is there a lot of digging and real deep studying that has to be done with the children's story? No, not at all. But now, when you start dealing with some other things like prophecy and all of that, doesn't it require a little more thinking? It does, doesn't it? So that's the difference between the milk and the meat, or the deeper studies on the plan of salvation and stuff like that. All right? So now let's go to the next verse, which is Hebrews 5, 12 and 13. Hebrews 5, 12 and 13. Uh-huh. And someone can read that for us.
For when from the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. For everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a baby.
So everyone that's on milk is unskillful in what?
Knowledge.
In the word
Word.
of righteousness. So they can't use this too well. They're not too good when it comes to the Bible. They don't really know where the promises are. They can't quote them. And they can't really give Bible studies. That's a baby, right? And then you have the one that's on strong meat, and then he would be strong meat. He's more on the line of like Paul, Jesus. Isaiah, Daniel, right? Now, one more text, and then I'm going to ask you a question. 1 Peter 2:2. The scriptures always have the spiritual and the physical. That's how we understand things. Jesus created us like that. When a woman has a baby, what does the baby eat?
Milk.
Milk. Even before baby food, the mother's what? Milk. Do they come out eating meat? No? No. You ever seen a baby that's 3 months with a carrot in his mouth? Not at all. You ever seen a 3-month-old baby eating a kale salad? No. Mashed potatoes maybe? I don't know. Some people push it. But no. Milk, right? Why? Based on the principle, if we had to make a connection, Paul saying that milk was for those that were not very skillful in the word. And if we had to take the physical reason why babies drink milk, what kind of connection do you think we can make? What do you think they're lacking? And I think CJ and Tiani hit more on those words earlier. Maturity. Mature. So you mean because they're immature, they can only drink milk? What matures when a person gets this way? Bigger. Their body. Is it just your fingers that get bigger?
No.
How about your legs? Is that the only thing that grows?
No.
Your stomach?
No.
For some people. But no, everything grows, doesn't it? The fingers grow, the feet grow, the legs grow, the shoulders. Now we're looking at all the external things, right? But what do you think is growing inside? Name a few things that's growing inside.
Your brain, liver,
Yeah, your brain.
intestine.
What's another word for that? The organs. Right? The organs. So notice, the digestive organs are getting what? Bigger, and then they're getting stronger, right? Just like muscles. So if someone reads 1 Peter 2:2, Paul is going to make a quick lesson for us. 1 Peter 2:2, someone read that for us.
As newborn babes, desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby.
So, what is he telling newborn babies? He's making an analogy, right, or a comparison. He said, as newborn babies desire what?
Milk.
The milk. So new believers or new Christians, what should they be on?
Milk of the word.
They should be on the milk of the word, right? If you put them on strong meat and they're just coming to Christ, what do you think they're going to have?
Indigestion.
They're going to have indigestion. They cannot digest the teachings, right? So you put them on a different diet until they what? Mature. And as they mature, they can digest what? The word. Amen. We all have that, correct? So, basically, because if I ask why, Paul says that you should put babies on milk and newborn believers on milk, and I ask you the question why, what answer would you give me?
Because their body, their organs are not strong enough to digest it and process it.
There you go. Did y'all hear that? What'd she say?
Anybody
Let's see if anyone was listening to that answer. Kayla, what'd she say?
Their
Kayla,
body
wasn't
is
listening.
not strong enough to digest it.
The organs, right?
Yeah.
They're not strong enough to digest.
Yeah.
Yes. So that would be the reason why. All right? Okay. What foods did Adam and Eve live off?
Fruits.
Who said fruits? The Bible?
Fruits or
Amen.
vegetables.
I'm glad you stuck to your guns. They live off fruits, right? How about nuts?
No.
You sure? There was no almonds before sin? No almonds?
Vegetables.
Almond tree?
Well,
There was almonds.
Vegetables.
So they eat nuts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Vegetables.
Not vegetables just yet, Mr. Campbell.
Vegetables and medicine.
But they ate nuts, right? And they ate fruit. Can a newborn baby eat nuts?
No.
No. What would happen Who's the youngest in here?
They would choke.
We don't have young babies anymore, and they think they can handle nuts. Maybe. He can chew them. He'll try. Let's go a little smaller than Nathaniel. What new babies do we have in the church?
Support.
Could Zipporah eat nuts? What would happen if you gave Zipporah walnuts or almonds
She would choke.
or cashews? They would what? Choke. What is not matured enough? The main thing.
Her
The teeth. The
Josiah.
teeth. Who?
Josiah.
Josiah. He could tear some nuts up, probably. He has teeth. So the teeth, right? That's something we can see, correct? So Adam and Eve, they ate fruits and nuts, correct? Why? Because they were what? Mature. Could they handle it? Absolutely. But babes cannot handle that kind of diet. What are nuts high in?
That.
What are almonds high in?
Protein.
Protein. Can a newborn babe, his digestive system or hers, can they handle protein or nuts?
No.
Not real well. Matter of fact, as they've studied, that's the reason behind SIDS. It's not because they were laying on their stomach or their back. Every child that has died of SIDS, right, has had heart stress. Their heart stops. It's not necessarily a heart attack, it stops. It gives up because it's overworked. That happens all the time. You ever seen someone on the free throw line and they just shoot the ball and they drop dead on the basketball court? Yeah, it happens a whole bunch. Their heart stops. Sometimes you can't trace it to where it's a heart attack, like a stroke, but it's possible for the heart to get tired and just don't beat anymore. You see that? Not because of clot, not because of extra fat, it's because the heart is stressed and it hurts. A lot of children mistake that for gut pain, but it's really the heart is stressed. And it's right here. And if you ask them where their pain's at, they'll feel somewhere here. So heart is overworking, and that's what causes that. A lot of the times it's not stomach pain. So the child could not digest almonds because they don't have the teeth, which is smart. God did not give baby teeth baby's teeth because he understood that the digestive acids were not even strong enough to handle the protein anyway. Everything develops in proportion. That's important. Amen? So they're right. Caleb said it, or little Daniel said it. He said the fruits and nuts is what Adam and Eve ate. They ate almonds and fruits. All right? Okay. So we see that. We've seen the text. Babes require milk. What foods did Adam and Eve live off? Fruits and nuts. Why then do we cook food?
Because like
What's the main reason? Who? You said
some-
cancer?
No, carrots. Like some fruit, some vegetables and stuff, like onions, they taste better cooked. They taste better cooked.
So they taste better, so we cook it because it tastes.
But it's like some things like carrots, you have to cook it because you can't digest it like that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to
Corn
say.
is vegetables or something.
Broccoli, like broccoli
That's true.
poisonous raw, or they say so.
You can't digest raw broccoli and carrots.
Yeah.
No.
I eat that all the
I
time.
love broccoli.
Okay.
That's what we
Yeah.
like.
Go ahead.
Some of the food depends. Some of them, the acid in it, you need to boil it because your stomach, it can hurt you if you eat it like that. Because, for example, yam, the stain there's a stain on it. If you don't boil it, that can hurt you.
Right.
So I don't know the main reason for cooking off most of the things that we eat today, but I know that some of them can be harmful if you eat them like that.
To aid in digestion.
Well, we want to explain it real clearly. It's pre-digestion.
Okay.
You're eating the food so that it can pre-digest,
Yes.
to make it easier for your
Easier for your
system to
system.
be able to digest it.
Okay.
That's the main reason. It's pre-digestion, right? Your body, some cannot handle cellulose. Most of it is broken down through, which we're going to find out, the beginning processes of digestion, which is in the mouth. But we cook to pre-digest food, all right? Similar to the reason why babies cannot eat nuts or meat. Not just because they don't have teeth, they don't have the digestive enzymes that are strong enough to break the food down. Amen?
Amen.
All right. Now, let's answer this question, which is going to complement this. Is raw food good? CJ says he eats broccoli and carrots. Raw. Is it good?
Some good for me.
How many say yes? I'm just saying, by show of hands, how many say yes? You got it.
Some of them.
Some of them, yes, some good.
It's better than others.
Some are poisonous raw. Cabbage might be poisonous raw, but other stuff is good.
Does some say no? How many say no?
I used to think.
Show of hands. Kimi, you undecided? Or you not
Like
participating?
lettuce, you should eat.
Okay, she's a conscientious observer.
I used to
Now
think.
notice. Say what?
I used to think it was good.
You used to think it was good. Okay. Now let me ask this question. Is it ever appropriate to cook nuts?
No.
Raw.
In cake.
Banana nut bread.
No.
Peanuts.
No.
Is it ever okay? Is it ever proper to cook nuts?
No.
Absolutely.
When you say
Some people have
You can
problems eating nuts. Legumes, they have problems eating peanuts, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So isn't it proper to cook that for some people?
Well,
I'm going to give some examples, yes and no. For some people, no. Chewing the peanut is easy to digest. For some people, it's a problem,
yeah.
a serious problem.
That's true.
All right?
I got a question.
Uh-huh.
Does roasted count as cooking?
Yeah, it's heating it up. It's pre-digestion.
Alright.
Why do some people have an adverse reaction to eating peanuts that have not been boiled or roasted, and some don't?
That's true.
It's digestion. And we're going to find out why, and we're going to find out why some people have a response and some people don't. Right? For example, you'll find also that some people, and I guess if a person chewed the same amount of times, right? And I'm going to use spinach for an example, and they chewed 200 times if you were to count it. And the other person, they chewed exactly the same. Why is it that some people, the spinach will come out the rectum when they use the bathroom, but for others it won't? Why?
Stuck to the wall.
Who?
Stuck to the wall of the intestines.
We're going to go back to this. It's digestion. Some people's body or system will not digest that, and others will. So when someone asks a question like that, a lot of it boils back down to the individual that's eating it. And we're going to find out why. Just as a child cannot digest things as an adult because the digestive system is not properly developed, so in many humans, the digestive system has become so weakened that certain types of diet and foods are toxic for them, but for others they have no problem with it. You see that? Okay. Let's go here. Does man live off the food he eats? Okay?
I want to ask one more question before we go. I remember when I was younger, I could drink milk. But as I got older, man, it would ferment big time, and I would just have issues with my stomach. Can a lot of the issues that we have with digesting food can come from the abuse from years past?
Yeah, and we're going to find out also when you're dealing with allergies or toxins a lot of the times, your body cannot digest the food and it creates a reaction in different forms. That's all it is. People with a lot of allergies that are from food allergies I'm talking about, not environmental allergies like pollen or stuff they breathe in, but from food allergies, a lot of people, their allergic reaction to food is because the body cannot do the process that we're going to explain today.
So does gas, where does gas come from? Like with allergies too? You know how allergies
Digestion.
come from digestion?
You know how they used to have Mylana and X-Lax and all that kind of stuff? And remember when they used to have the little tongues that sizzle?
Yeah.
And then you see a neutralizing acid, which is supposed to be a form of how it does gas? All of those things. And some people have the remedies with the tea, and then it gets rid of gas and all that kind of stuff. There's a reason why the body is producing gas and why it's in the colon, right? All right. Does man live off the food he eats?
That's a good question.
Yes.
Now, this is important.
Yeah, but a very good question.
Yes. Is that your question?
It's not a trick question, but look at what I found, and some of you math people may be able to relate to this. Okay, I'm gonna get one. I'm not as quick as some people. All right, let's do this. All right, let's go ahead and use a factor of 4. let's go to 2.
Yeah,
2/4.
we
Okay.
remember that.
I'll read to what I have. 8/16 reduced by 4. Is that what it's called? Can you a factor of 4? Equals 2/4, right? But is that correct? Is that a correct answer?
Yes.
Is that its simplest form? No. Now, 8/16 broken down is 2/4. But it's not its simplest or least common denominator. It's not going to be 2/4, right? So what's the least common denominator here?
1/2.
Or what is it reduced down to its simplest form is going to be what? 1/2. 8/16, and it reduced to its simplest form is 1/2 in basic math, right? Okay, so when I ask the question, does man live off the food he eats? That's not a wrong answer, but I'm going to go a little farther and I'm going to reduce it to the 1/2. And I'm going to say that man lives off the food or the energy released from the food. Energy released from the food he eats. Now this is important because this goes back to what I said earlier. If a person eats spinach, 2 of them, and they chew it to complete mastication, right? It goes through the digestive system. One comes out the colon, but the other, there's no trace of it, right? Just with that basic concept there, who do you think, or whose body do you think digested the food or utilized the food properly, and whose did not?
The one that came out of the rectum.
The one that did not.
The one that did
Yeah.
not.
The one that did not.
Yeah, because
His food would have went through the proper digestion, and it wouldn't show coming out of the rectum. As a bowel movement, like corn and stuff like that, right? The body didn't eat that. It didn't use it. Now, if we stick with the definition and say it consists of the food we eat, then I ate that corn, but why did it come out? At that point, I need to go a step farther and say it's the energy released from the food that I eat. Amen? Does everyone understand that principle right there? So then we can begin to understand Ellen White, where she speaks of the importance of mastication. If someone is not properly chewing their food, guess what happens? All they're doing is maybe fattening up, but starvation is taking place on a cellular level and they're dying. Do you see that? They're starving, though they appear to be getting what? Bigger. Same concept of someone that eat white bread or white rice all the time, and that's all they eat, and they don't get any nutrients. They'll appear to fatten up, but guess what's going on? Inside they're dying. And so that's the least common denominator when that question is asked. Do you have a statement or a comment?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that it has something to do with basically what comes out is unused.
It's unused.
That's the concept, right?
We have that, right?
Right.
All right. Last question. All food, with the exception of the lemon, this is going to be important. All food, with the exception of the lemon, is different. At least to scientific studies, lemon is different from every other food that you eat. Not lime, it's not the same. But lemon is. It's the only food that's different. Now, when we begin to explain that difference, it'll come to more clarity what that difference is. But lemons are different. Right? Okay. Now, where does digestion begin? You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, amen.
Or in the pot.
It begins in the mouth?
Well, your mouth starts watering.
But the digestion of food begins in the mouth, right? So I eat food, right? And where does it go? Into the mouth. What happens in the mouth? Now you have the teeth.
Break it down.
Okay, if you only have that many teeth, you're in trouble, but you have the teeth, right?
Don't like the enzymes in your saliva help break down the food too?
There you go. That's important. Now watch
The
this.
teeth also.
Yeah, your teeth. So you're chewing the food up every time. Now the smell of food, we know, starts to produce salitation, right? The smell of it alone. That's why some people wake up in the morning and they follow the trail. You ever seen that little bird, the toucan Sam? And he follows, is it toucan Sam? He follows his nose all the way to the Fruit Loops or whatever it is. But anyway, the teeth, it was one of the birds or animals that would wake up to food. Okay, the mouth, chewing, mixing with the saliva and the food, correct? So digestion begins where? Is it important?
Yeah.
It is important. Dwayne has always inspired me to slow down when I eat, because he chews like this. And I chew like this. It's more effective. Now, the liver, this is important. This here, the enzymes released from the liver is measures the strength of the saliva. It comes from here, the liver. There's different strength levels of saliva, and it's determined by the liver. What happens if I have diluted or weakened saliva or digestive enzymes starting in the mouth? What happens?
You need to chew it longer.
Maybe.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
You can chew. If it's not broken down, you're going to have what? Serious problems. You're going to have digestive problems right from the start. Because the strength of the saliva is determined by how well the liver functions. If the liver is impaired, or if it's not functioning properly, the saliva itself will not be strong enough to break down your food. All right? And we're going to find that the majority of people are in that condition right there. Now, I'm going to use an example. You have a plant, right, that grows out the ground. Correct? What do you put normally in the soil in order to feed the plants?
Water.
You don't water.
Yeah.
It needs oxygen too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't it need calcium?
Sun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, we have an overabundance of calcium out there.
Yeah.
Calcium is considered the gatekeeper, especially when dealing with agriculture.
Sunlight.
Without calcium, all the other minerals have a problem getting into the cell. But I'm going to use this. We're going to say here, let's just use something like magnesium, right? You ever seen Epsom salt?
No.
They're little crystals. You took a bath in Epsom salt, right?
Oh, yeah, that's all.
Yeah. Okay. How about lime rock? Yeah? Let's think of some more. Alfalfa? No? Some of the stuff we put in the... Okay, I'm going to get real basic on you. Table scraps.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. All right, table scraps. We all familiar with that, right? Now, you put that in the soil, correct?
Like a banana peel. And,
Can the plant take up the banana peel and eat it?
No.
No. Can it do the apple that way?
No.
No. It can't do nothing that way, pretty much, that you put into it except water. But even that goes through a change. So now watch this. If the magnesium, the lime rock, the calcium, the banana peels, and all of that I'm putting into the soil, if the plant can't take it up in that state, what must transpire before the plant can be fed? It has to be broken down, and the frequency of that element, or those table scraps, have to be changed in order for it to be uptaken into the roots and what? Feed the plant. Do you see that? The same principles apply with digestion in the human body. So the plant doesn't necessarily live directly off the elements until it is broken down into a state to where it can be uptaken by the roots into the plant. Do we see that? All right. Those are agricultural lessons that helps us to understand somewhat similar on how the body functions. All right. So now notice this. Where are we going with that?
calcification.
Digestion begins in the mouth, right? Now this is beautiful right here. Watch what Ellen White says. She says the relation which exists between the mind and the body. Where's the mind located? In your cabeza, in your brain, right? She says the relation which exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. What does that mean?
Together.
They're together. They're very close. You can't separate the two. Milo and Otis, right? When one is affected, the other does what? Sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health of the physical system. Now, let me ask you something. Fear, anger, bitter, and resentment. Does that affect digestion?
Yes.
We'll say yes.
Yes.
I agree with you. But now the problem sometimes is really not a problem. Honestly, for me to know that it does is good enough for me. But I told you, I'm like little Daniel. I want to know why on almost everything. I want to know why. And if I don't know why, I'm happy with that, but I'm not going to stop until I continue to find out why things happen that way. Sister White said it in Mind, Character, and Personality. So now how can fear, since I agree, anger and resentment affect my digestion?
Because it affects the brain, and the brain is not maybe the time when you will spend to eat to chew your food and to make sure your brain is somewhere else, so your mind is not properly sorted out for you to process that food right.
No. That's a beautiful answer. It is exactly. It's this way. Have you ever seen a circuit that is overloaded? For example, let's say you plug two things in there, like a generator and maybe something else real heavy. What will it do with the breaker? It'll trip it. Why?
Too much weight.
Too much juice is being what? Pulled. Fear, anger, and resentment saps the life forces along with improper sleep, right? It saps the life forces of the brain, or the electrical current that flows from the brain through the rest of the body. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. The brain communicates with, guess what? You have to take a guess. What does the brain communicate with directly? In terms of digestion.
Oh, your stomach.
The liver. The brain communicates, so watch this. The brain is going to send communication to the liver. This is important. Once food enters the mouth, the brain understands exactly what the liver needs to do in order for the food to be put into a state to where the body can use it for digestion. I'm going to explain that. Here it goes. Let's follow the travel. Food comes into contact with the digestive enzymes that's released from the liver. You see that? So food goes in and it comes in contact with these enzymes. All right? That's released by the liver. Now, we're going to give it from a view that the liver is functioning properly. These saliva juices are good. They're strong. Digestive enzymes released by the liver. And what is referred to as, this is a new word, electron press. And that's simply pressure between the digestive enzymes and the food. This pressure happens. It's for a reason. Electron press occurs in order to break energy of food into a free state. Now that sounds a bit complicated, but I'm going to explain it. The reason why I'm going to use water versus something like a banana or an apple, because it's a lot more difficult to illustrate the elements inside of those foods. So water is very simple because what is water?
H2O.
It's H2O, which is 2 parts hydrogen and what? 1 part oxygen. It's very easy to illustrate. Bananas and all of that is not. It's like this long.
I want to ask a question though.
Mm-hmm.
So if I understand you right, if I put a nut in my mouth, the brain will tell the liver the kind of saliva I need to break down that nut, different from when I put, for example, a banana or water in my mouth, the kind of saliva I need to break it down.
Not necessarily the kind, but it will send a message to the liver that it needs to produce or release enzymes so that the saliva can begin to break it down. Now the brain is going to get more specific as it communicates to the liver, not necessarily what type of saliva. All right? Now watch this. This energy is being sent to the liver. Now watch this. Food goes in the mouth. It mixes with the enzymes, right? It goes down the food tube, we'll call it that. It goes into the stomach, correct? Now in the stomach you also have digestion, which comes from the liver again. Hydrochloric acid, right? And we understand that churn goes on in here. Matter of fact, the stomach starts doing stuff like that in order to break the food down. You ever seen it before? It squeezes hard. It does a motion that, it's a muscle that helps switch the food around with the acids. All right? Now the body produces some type of pepsin to guard the stomach, because some people ask, well, why doesn't the acid burn a hole in the stomach? It's because the moment these things happen, the body releases pepsin, which coats the stomach, and that's where they get Pepto-Bismol from.
Okay.
Remember Pepto-Bismol?
Yeah.
People who had what? Heartburn? What they call it, heartburn? Well, what happens is they're having a problem. The body doesn't produce pepsin properly.
Okay.
And so what happens is it begins to eat a hole in the lining of the stomach. And so when hydrochloric acid begins to work, it causes that sensation. So they give you Pepto-Bismol that coats the wall and does the same job as pepsin that's in the system, right?
Okay.
Okay, but anyway, this happens, then the food goes into the small intestines, then to the large intestines. Now, watch this. While in the intestinal wall, this takes place. The electron press from the enzymes and the digestive acids comes in contact with the food and it breaks up the elements. So notice this. We'll use this just for illustrative purposes. Hydrogen, right, and oxygen. Two parts, it forms this atomic structure, a molecule here. You see that? And they're together. These two come together to combine and make up a new structure when you put different foods together. Apples, bananas, and all that kind of stuff, but we're going to use water. So hydrogen and oxygen come together and it forms what? Water. When it goes through this process, this electron press that I'm talking about, it breaks it up like this. It separates them. So now it's in a form of free energy. When it's broken up like this, correct? It's then released via the blood to the liver. Now what do you think the liver does at this point?
Filters it.
This is where the brain comes in. The brain is going to send through electrical, we're going to read that in the Spirit of Prophecy, through electricity and magnetism, the brain will send a signal to the liver and tell the liver exactly what to do with the energy that's been broken up from the food and how to recombine it into what we call an amino acid, which is the building block of all living organisms. Do you see that? When the amino acid is developed now, stuff like the shape of the liver or the cells that shape the liver, the cells that shape the heart, those things can be damaged, right? Tissue is damaged through whatever. Like, for example, if you injure yourself or something, there's cell damage. So when we eat our food, when everything functions properly, the brain says, okay, the kneecap, the cartilage needs to be repaired. So now it's going to put the food, if it's the proper food, back together in a way now they can begin to repair the damaged tissue in that area. Do we see that? And that's proper digestion, where the food can be utilized to begin to repair damaged tissue and shapes the organs. All right? To maintain the shape of the organ. All right, now let's look at this for a second. Once this process occurred, 1, 2, then 3, all is well. I want to read something.
No, I just as you was talking, it just hit me why you probably should eat a variety of food and not eat the same things. Like, let's say for instance, every day I was to have like a banana, and I don't know the composition of a banana,
Right.
but let's say it was H2O. That means that every day I will be giving my body H2O. But what happened to all the calcium and the magnesium and the iron and I'm not getting that because I'm only eating one type of
Now this is interesting.
My body's only using what that food could produce.
Now that's why, Sister White, in the scriptures, it talks about a variety of what? Food. If you keep getting some of the same thing, it's possible too your body can begin to have a reaction. You know your body will lose appetite for something that you keep putting into it. Right? It's almost like you, after a while, I remember every day I was eating Chinese, not Chinese, I was eating Indian food. Every day, that's all I was making was lentils and rice and naan. I think I did that for several months. And then I even did pizza like that. And to the point to where my body was like, yeah. It wasn't no longer a craving or before like I wanted. It was like, not today. You know, let's come up with something else. You've exhausted this. And so I'm understanding what's going on. If I eat the same thing, it's dealing with the same elements that I'm putting into the system. For example, if I put the same thing into the soil over and over and over, something else is going to be depleted or suffer. Do we understand that process? So, notice what Ellen White says about the brain. This is what I wanted to, it says, 9/10 of the diseases from which men suffer have their foundation here in the mind. Fear, anger, resentment, jealousy, bitterness, not being forgiven, all of those things will shut the brain down so that they cannot communicate with the liver in order for food to be digested. And you'll start seeing all types of ailments going on. And I don't care how many practitioners, how many doctors, how many pills they pop, they'll never be fixed. Their sickness is in their head. Do you see that? Literally, it's an emotional, spiritual condition that's hindering them from having physical recovery. And that's why, what does the true medical missionary focus on? The mind, the body, and what? The soul. To simply cater to someone's physical condition while ignoring and disregarding their spiritual condition is working in a method that Christ never endorsed. Do we see that? You don't help them 9 times out of 10 because 9/10 of all diseases begin where? In the mind. Irregular hours of eating and sleeping. I know me and Tiani was talking about this, about irregular hours of eating and sleeping. It saps the brain forces. That's taken from youth instructor. Well, why are the brain forces so important? Because it communicates to the rest of the body in order to have what? Proper digestion. You see that? All right, let's read this one. The relation which exists, the brain is the organ and instrument of the mind and controls the whole body. In order for the other parts of the system to be healthy, the brain must be healthy. And in order for the brain to be healthy, the blood must be pure. If by correct habits of eating and drinking, the blood is kept pure, the brain will be properly nourished. Do we see that? And then she says, in the final text, quote from here, it says, the influence of the mind on the body as well as the body on the mind should be emphasized. So when statements like that are made, I say, well, how many times can you say it? It's not just talking about saying it. In other words, it should be understood, the relationship between what? The brain or the mind and the body should be studied and understood, then emphasized to people so that they can understand. Amen? And that goes back to an intelligent faith. When people have questions that sometimes it's hard for us to answer, but if we have an intelligent answer to give them, then they can understand how their body functions and why. And not just some old Caucasian lady that was sitting back in the 1800s coming up with all these different things to do and not to do. Amen? Do we see that?
Yeah.
There's a reason behind it, and God wants us to know that reason. Does He mean obey only if you know the reason? No, you don't have to know how everything works in order to obey. If you understand what's being said, then you should obey it. But it's good for the teacher, for Adventists, for medical missionaries, which every one of us here should be, right? It's good for us to understand how these things function. All right? Okay. Now watch this. Now these are comments and stuff that I read a long time ago that I used to think, where is she getting this from? But God is one of inspiration. She says, Mind, Character, and Personality, page 60. The electric power, what does she say? The electric power of the brain promoted by mental activity vitalizes the whole system and is thus an invaluable aid in resisting disease. This should be made plain. So you mean the body runs on, or at least the brain runs on electrical power? You know, we laugh at some of those movies. You remember that crazy movie that came out, The Matrix? Remember they were saying they had everybody was a battery cell? Well, there's some truth to that. The body runs all 12 volts. And there's electrical current that runs through the whole system. And when you have electricity, what do you have? You have power, but you have magnetism as well. What do magnets do? It attracts. What are elements? Different types of metals, right? You know, carbon, calcium, even alcohol is produced in the body. And most people, that's why we got to start reasoning rationally. The body takes sugar, and what does it do? It converts it into alcohol. One drop, now that's a drop now. See that drop? One drop of alcohol, which is similar to the composition of pure grain alcohol, the same one that people get drunk off of. One drop of alcohol in the system is used to heat the whole body up and maintain body heat. Just one. So as big as Clifton, as tall as he may be, and me and Clifton, and Simon, it's only one drop of alcohol that's used to keep our body warm. Now what happens if you think you have too much sugar in your system? Then you start thinking that everybody else is crazy and got poor circulation and they always cold. I found out the reason why I'm hot a lot is because my body does a good job at producing alcohol and it makes me sweat. And everybody else is not having a problem per se. Right? I did that when I began to test my own self to see where my sugar levels were, and I realized that my body was converting alcohol into heat. And that's why I sweat and those type of things. So if someone is always hot, I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, there's a problem with their sugar levels, right? Okay. So now, when these things take place, bam, bam, bam. Now, 3 things the liver needs that's very important, primarily, in order for it to do the enzymes, and in order for it to take what we eat and then put it on a frequency that the body can use. Water, oxygen, and calcium. If any of these things are missing, what happens if you take a stool and you remove one of the legs? It falls. A stool is not going to stand. A 3-legged stool is not going to stand up if you remove one of the legs. So this is what happens when there's a deficiency in oxygen, water, or calcium to the liver. Automatically, you're going to have a problem with the digestive enzymes up front. And if you have a problem with the digestive enzymes, you're going to have a problem with what? Digestion. And if you have a problem with digestion, what occurs with the food? It can't break up the food into free energy that can be used and converted by the liver into the correct amino acid to repair body tissue, cells, etc.
It comes out unused.
Now watch this. This is the brilliant part behind this. This can be taking place 10 years before there's any symptoms. Whenever you start to see symptoms, this has been going on in the body for a long period of time. So what if you could identify this well before symptoms ever begin to manifest itself in the body? So imagine this. What if I inherited an issue to where genetically things don't work properly? Say my liver or other organs, right? I get that weak leg from my mother or father. Now, I'm eating right. I'm eating all the foods that I'm supposed to. I'm taking everything in that the Bible and the prophet says. But yet, I'm beginning to develop symptoms of disease. Why? Why do you think that happens?
You say we're doing everything we should do?
Yeah, you ever seen somebody that is doing, they exercise all the time, they try every diet, they're eating right, they're doing everything, but they're manifesting symptoms of disease. They just can't get rid of it. They did everything. I've known people that have truly exhausted a lot of energy and they're not healed. Matter of fact, in some of the miracles that Christ performed, certain people, it wasn't because of their sin, per se, that Jesus healed. Remember, when he healed one, he said, no, that wasn't any of the reason why that happened. It wasn't because of his sins. He's blind.
And they asked, what sin did he commit? Jesus said, he didn't commit any sin.
But some of them, he said, what? Go and sin no more.
Right.
Obviously, he said, let a worse thing come upon you.
Right.
So he was showing them that, yeah, your actions definitely brought this in on you. But is it possible to inherit, problems? Absolutely. Now, I've been studying this because when I understood this right here, it helped me to understand also on why the cell takes a sickle shape. And I didn't understand that when this doesn't occur properly right here, the body cannot produce the amino acid, the proper DNA structure in order to make sure that cells are developed properly and take on the right shape. So all the vitamin A, all the supplements and everything I'm putting in my body, and for some reason I'm not getting better. If calcium is missing from the soil, it doesn't matter what you put in there, the plant's going to have serious issues. Because calcium is the gatekeeper to allow other minerals in order for the plant to be able to uptake the other minerals properly. Remember I gave you the illustration earlier? So what do you think happens with us if we already have this condition going on, and then lo and behold, we come to the Adventist message and we start eating right, but then 5 years later we die of cancer, even though I was exercising and all that. All the church said, well, man, they probably wasn't doing that right or this right? That's not always the case. I would say the majority of the time, or a lot of the time, that may be the case, but that's not always the case. Amen? Any questions so far on what we've covered with the beginning part of digestion? Any questions? Comments?
So what happened to those people who are, some of us whose liver don't function the correct way?